Puffy, let's go for a walk. Come on, Puffy. Good boy. Bye, Connie.
My grandfather, Ferry Duncani, has been in the United States for nearly 70 years now. His story, likewise to many other immigrants, is a unique one. His journey began in the summer of 1932 in Kermanshah, growing up during the rule of Reza Shah and the rise of Nazi Germany. During that time, intolerance was widespread in his country. There was a clear notion that Jews had little to no place in a Muslim Iranian nation.
They would call us najas or dirty. There was a bathhouse, and my mother would take all the 4 children with her. I never forget the sound in the bathhouse. Had a very low ceiling, like about 5 feet or 6 feet tall, and all the women, Jewish women, with all their children, they were all in that bathhouse, and they all were speaking at the same time. It was a cacophony of the voices that was maddening. The Jews were allowed to use this bathhouse either once a week or I think it was once a month. They were allowed to use the bathhouse because they were not allowed to mix with the Muslim.
Even after moving to Tehran a few years later, my grandfather, his family, and many other Jews still experienced intolerance from the Muslim community.
Going home, we wouldn't just walk home. We had to run home because all the Muslim kids would beat up on us. One time we were in the yard playing. My brother was lucky. He was able to catch a ball. That's very unusual. He didn't think about being Jewish or Muslim. A Muslim guy came and grabbed the ball from my brother and punched him in the nose, in the mouth. I was a weightlifter at the time. I couldn't take that shit from anybody. I jumped in there, and the guy was even taller than me. I remember I grabbed the guy, picked him up in the air, and dumped him on the ground and started beating on him.
Though my grandfather was able to fight back against the prejudice thrown his family's way, it was only a matter of time before they considered leaving Iran.
I graduated high school, and my dad wanted me out of Iran. So my dad sent me, got a ticket for me with my mother and my little sister, Jeanette.
Leaving everything behind, they boarded a ship and made their way to America. In December of 1952, my grandfather and his family boarded at the Big Apple, where he planned to get a better education.
At that time, there was a big Persian Jewish community in New York. We had aunts and uncles and sisters, and we had a lot of relatives there, so we were not lonely, really.
Though New York served as a safe haven for my grandfather, the same couldn't be said for Iowa. After moving there to attend medical school with his newlywed wife, my grandmother Sandy, he found himself in unfamiliar territory.
Since they weren't exposed to so much diversity, seeing someone like my father, this dark guy who doesn't speak English the way they do, was probably jarring for them.
There was one guy that in the morning in medical school, he would go pass by me and would make fun of me, and he would say, "Here comes a little Persian." Or so, I don't remember the name. Some name that was really not nice. So I never said anything. One day, the guy came, passed by me, and called me a name, and I said, "Oh, look who's here, the hillbilly." The guy looked at me, did you call me name? I said, "You call me name, I'm calling your name back." From then on, he never said it again.
After finishing medical school, he continued his journey down south with his wife and the 2 children they had during their time in Iowa. There, he made it to his final destination, South Florida, where my mother was born and where he, unfortunately, found himself amongst another wave of intolerance.
I was in the car with him one time, and I think someone thought this was a time in Miami where the Cuban population was multiplying because everybody was leaving Cuba because of communism, Fidel Castro, and they wanted to, and the closest place, of course, was Miami. The white people that lived in Miami were not so pumped about this new population coming into town. So we were driving on Biscayne Boulevard, and a white pickup truck had come next to our car, had honked at the car, and my dad was like, well, maybe my lights aren't on or something, and everything was fine, but the gentleman kept honking his horn to get my dad's attention. And ultimately he drove up next to the car, and he looked at my dad and he said, wait a minute, and it was a white guy. And he looked at my dad and he said, hold on a minute, and then he pulled a gun out and pointed it towards the window. Well, my dad took off, pushed the gas, and got away from the car.
Even with these experiences at hand, the bad has outweighed the good. My grandfather heavily appreciates the opportunities of life that he would have never experienced in his home country.
There was nothing in Iran, really. Every family was to themselves. So that was a completely different life. That was not really life. I don't know what, we didn't communicate with anybody. We played among children. We had no friends because you were not allowed to be friends with the Muslims.
You can be Jewish and live in America. You can't live in Iran and be Jewish. There's no religious freedom. Everything that you have to do is underground. You want to pray, you want to celebrate your holidays, you can't do it with comfort in those countries. In America, you can.
Though he obviously experienced many things during his 70 years here, intolerance was never nearly as strong as it has been in modern times. A greater kind of hatred and intolerance has emerged recently in our country, tainting the vision of the America he once knew.
I love this country, I'll always love it, but I think that we lost our way completely.
How he lived in his youth in America, that doesn't exist anymore. There's hatred, there's division.
Everybody, this country is immigrants. So, and that's why nobody has right to stop the immigration to this country. On the Statue of Liberty, it says, give me your poor, your weak, and we'll host them here. Hopefully change will come, but it'll take a lot to change that. It'll take a lot to change that.
I feel unfortunate for people who are in other countries that want to come to America. This isn't their time, and I think it'll happen. I think it'll happen, but at this exact moment, it is not safe, nor are the opportunities available, because we need to fix what's going on here first before we can say, hey, come on over.
Sad time for the country. I feel very, very sad and fear for the future of this beautiful country, which I love.
With many more years under his belt, there's a chance that my grandfather will be able to witness a shift in tolerance. Until then, he waits and hopes for a better tomorrow.